and that's up to you. I want to say welcome to everyone. First and foremost, let me switch back to our kind of more opening slide here. I am Jeremy Caplan. I teach at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism in New York City, which is part of CUNY. And I'm far from that institution right now. Everything we're doing is virtual at the school at the moment. And while at that institution, I had the great privilege of meeting Diogo, who is a fellow in our program, in our entrepreneurial journalism program, and is the founder of Me Explica, a really ambitious explanatory news service that I admire him for having built and developed and continuing to grow. And he's just launched a podcast and has done a lot of really interesting things professionally. But I am particularly honored to get to talk to him on a more personal basis now that I'm no longer teaching in that program with him there. We can chat as friends and colleagues, and we can learn from each other, in particular about this topic that we're talking about today, which is well-being amidst all of the stuff that's going on in our world. And we're not going to talk about all that stuff because you all know about all that stuff. And so what we're going to talk about mostly is the solution side. What are we doing personally to stay well? And what are specific resources and frameworks that have been useful for us? Because I think there's a lot of generic talk about how people feel, but I think what I find really useful and what I hope you will find useful is hearing some solutions and some tools and resources, not that solve everything, of course, but that just maybe help us feel a little bit better or cope with some of what we're challenged by. And everyone's challenges are different, but hopefully we can share some solutions and ideas. And I hope through this session we can share with each other as well. We obviously would love to hear from you all and hear what's been useful for you along the way. And hopefully we can all kind of benefit from the sharing of resources. So thank you for being here. And you're going to hear from both of us. We're going to kind of alternate some of the things that we find useful. We've got a bunch of resources that we've amassed into a Google slide deck. We will share that deck with you afterwards if you're interested in exploring them, because some of them we might brush through quickly. And yeah, thank you for being here. And we're going to dive right in. Diogo, do you want to say any words before we dive right into the next bit?
Yeah, just a quick word. Thank everybody for coming, for watching this. And it's really great to be here doing this because, like Jeremy said, him and I we're both interested in well-being and in tools. He has a very cool newsletter called Wonder Tools, which I love, and I've been recommending to everybody here in Brazil. And I think that one of the things that has been helping me just to start in the conversation is sharing. And it's great to be with all of you here. And it was great to talk to Jeremy throughout this process for us to create this little webinar talk. So yeah, that's it. And I hope you feel comfortable to share with us as well, because we want to learn from you too.
Thanks, Diogo. So let's dive into some of these resources. This is a little slide. By the way, I'm using which allows me to be on top of these slides. Hopefully that's working. Diogo, you can ping me if it stops working at any point.
Yeah, okay.
And we can shift back to a more regular thing here. Are you seeing these slides updating? Not sure if you're seeing that.
I don't know if anybody else is seeing it, but it's frozen for me. I don't know if you'll.
Okay, I'm going to switch back to a regular camera here.
There we go.
This is me.
There we go.
Back in a regular camera, and I'm going to share a screen instead, and maybe that'll be a little bit simpler. So there we go. Do you see that now?
Yep.
Okay, great. And let me make sure I'm on the right camera here. Okay. Okay. So let's actually start with your input while we have it. Some of you had the poll open, others of you haven't. So if you haven't, you can just chime in. This is something that we're going to share a bunch of tools that have been useful for us, but we want to include your voice and kind of get a collective thing going. So you can just click that link to join the Slido poll, or you can point your QR code at the screen, whatever's easiest for you, and just share one thing that's been useful for you. And then we'll come back to these later on. I'm going to move on to the next slide in a minute, but you can keep adding to that if you've got something to share. It could be a book, it could be an app, it could be a song, it could be, I don't know what else is useful for people. Yeah, anything. So we see a couple people, and it's anonymous, so you can feel free to put in whatever you want. We're not going to name anyone, obviously. We're not going to know who said what. Digital Sabbath, that's one that's great. I've been trying to do half a day on Saturdays. I can't always do a full day, but I try to do at least half a day. Maybe we'll come back to some of these a little bit later on as well for more detail if people want more elaboration on 20-minute movement videos, yoga, digital detox, getting outside, reading voraciously, Headspace, moving away from devices. Yeah, these are all great things. Movies. So surfing. Yeah, if you have access to surfing or swimming or any kind of outdoor activity that you get exercise plus the outdoors, that's a kind of double benefit. No phone walks and no phone zones at home. Yeah, that's great. Gazing at babies. Yeah, that's great. Lots of good websites for gazing at babies, gazing at kittens. And feel free to use the chat, the Zoom chat also, to just drop in a link that's useful for people and just annotate it, just say what it is so people will know what it is. And then we all can keep sharing as we go. And I'll collect these that you've put in the Slido at the end. So just moving along, if you see anyone ramble in, I've got my 2 little girls here on their lunch break. So I'm sure all of us have whatever's going on. And a lot of us have exploding heads. And I just want to say a word about my own exploding head. I was sick at the beginning of this whole process and this whole pandemic, I mean. And fortunately, I'm fine. I'm grateful for my health. But mentally, it was challenging after that. I went through some just mental issues I hadn't really faced before. And that was new to me and challenging. And this stuff that we're talking about and the stuff that Diogo's talking about, we shared resources, and those resources have been helpful for me in getting through this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Diogo. Do you want to talk about a few of these books that have been meaningful to you?
Yeah, and like Jeremy said, I've also been dealing with mental health issues. I've been diagnosed with depression 5 years ago, and it's something that I've been dealing with. I'm under treatment, but I just thought that reading about it, like we're gonna talk about here, is something that really illuminates the issue for me. Lost Connections is a great book by Johann. He's a British journalist, and he was trying to dig deep into depression, but not only to the medical side of it, not only talk about medicine and the things that we already know, like it's a chemical imbalance of the brain. He was trying to find out if there was more to it. And what he found out that I really liked is that social connection is also a very big part of it. And another thing that it gave to me, it was like a gift to me, is to understand that it's not something that it's only within my body. It's not my fault or something like that. It's something that happens, and social conditions changed. And sometimes you just go into a depression, and it's okay. And I think that's a really good book for anyone who's interested in good journalism or mental health. I think it's just a great read. So I have another book to recommend, and is Mindfulness by Ronald Purser. This one may be a little bit, for people who are already into mindfulness and meditation, but I think it's a really good way of observing how these techniques sometimes are just too detached from their root, which is religion, and more than religion, but an ethical way of viewing the world. And I think it's a good reminder, for us to try to understand that meditation is not only about getting calmer or being more productive, but also about what relationship we want to have with the world and with other people. And because one of the goals of meditation, one of the things that is good for, according to Buddhism, as I understand it, I'm not a scholar or anything like that, is that meditation is one of the parts of the process of you becoming a better person and seeking enlightenment. So it's not just a tool, but it's part of a way of living. I'm not a Buddhist. I don't plan on being Buddhist, but I think it's a good reminder. So, and I want to talk about also The Emotional Life of Your Brain, which is, I think it's a great book. I really like it. It's more on the science side of things, but still, it was the book that introduced me to meditation, to be honest. And he talks about all the ways that our brain behaves, and how we can, try to, from the understanding of how our body works, we can also understand, the mental issues that we're going through. And that was very, very good for me, because like I said, when I got the diagnosis, I didn't really understand what that was. I thought it was like a moral problem. I was lazy. I was someone who couldn't handle things. That book showed me, that book talks about, the physiological side of it, the neurological side. It's a very good book. It's very sensitive. It's not too medical, and I think it's a great read for anyone who's interested in this subject. So yeah. So Jeremy, I think yeah, there we go. We're back on the presentation. So what's the, you want to talk about your books now, Jeremy? Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, I just muted so there'd be no background noise. So the first one for me is, can you see this on screen? Jon Kabat-Zinn.
Yeah.
Great. So wherever you go, there you are. This was the book you mentioned, a book that introduced you to meditation. This book introduced me to mindfulness and meditation. It's beautifully written. It's not at all a self-help type of book, which some books are. It's very thoughtful. It's very poetic. It's has a lot of really great insights and just beautiful writing. It's kind of a modern classic in the world of mindfulness. It's not brand new, but I still love referring back to it. Oops, let me click out of here for a second to reset this. I'm going to stop the share and then reshare. The next couple books are books about tiny habits, and for me, there's a whole range of books about habits. Tiny habits and atomic habits are two of the ones that I have found most useful. A lot of these books about habits have similar basic messages, right? Which is that instead of trying to set gigantic goals, which are generally very difficult to achieve, we should instead focus on breaking things into really small steps and just focus on taking those small steps. And with regard to mindfulness, it means essentially implementing new practices, which you do on a regular basis. And you're not trying to suddenly learn meditation overnight, or you're not trying to suddenly, create this new hour-long fitness regimen. Instead, you're trying to essentially adopt some small new thing for a minute a day, or for doing one push-up, or taking 3 deep breaths after you get out of bed. It's really small things that make a difference. And these books basically give you a way of actually thinking about that and implementing it. So I'm going to shift to the share screen again to show you those. Here we go. So this is Atomic Habits, which is a fantastic book. It was a bestseller. Millions of people have read it. But I found it super useful. It's very specific in terms of guiding you to this process of adopting these really small habits. And the one push-up, instead of trying to run a marathon, just deciding to do one push-up a day, literally one push-up. And it sounds ridiculous to a lot of people. But the reality is, if you get into a habit of something like that, and it could be, again, 1 minute of mindfulness, it could be one deep breath, it could be whatever it is, it's much easier then to revise that upward. And then pretty soon you're doing 10 push-ups, and pretty soon you're doing a minute of mindfulness or 5 minutes of mindfulness. It's much easier to ramp up a habit you've already started than to start from scratch and try to jump into something that's too big. New Year's resolutions often fail. There's a lot of literature about that. And the primary reason they fail is because people suddenly expect to do some gigantic thing, or they set some gigantic new goal without implementing the kind of regular small steps that lead the way to that. So Atomic Habits is one of these books. The next one is, oops, it keeps wanting to go out to the actual links in these slides. We put the links in the slides so you'd be actually able to go through them, but didn't mean to click it. So Tiny Habits is the other one. PJ Fogg has been doing this for much longer than James Clear. He's a professor out on the West Coast, and he basically has an even more kind of rigorous system for thinking about this. And one of the key insights for me was this idea that you need to combine kind of setting up the right conditions for doing something and basically making it super, super easy. So it's a combination of factors, including our motivation and our ability to do something. So we can't always change motivation. To do something super, super hard, it's hard to change our innate motivation. We may not feel like restricting ourselves, or we may not feel like doing some heavy exercise. It's hard to change that just magically. But what we can change is the difficulty or ease of doing that. So if all we're asking ourselves to do is one push-up or take 3 deep breaths, that's a lot easier. Or just to have one piece of fruit before we dive into the junk food. So for me, that's been a specific strategy, right? I love chocolate. I love salty snacks. I love all that stuff. So I'm not going to stop myself from doing that, but I just committed to having like one healthy thing first. And that's easy enough to do. And it ends up reducing how much junk I end up eating. So that's an example of like a specific small one that I've done. Gretchen Rubin's an author I like a lot. She has The Happiness Project. She has a bunch of great books. This one is about kind of trying to adjust the way you do things in a positive way. And she's got a lot of specific examples, and she's just great at describing it. And I got a lot out of this book called Better Than Before. And yeah, and I think we'll stop there. Let me just pause and see if people have questions or comments. You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute and just share something that's on your mind, or a book. If you have a book that you want to share with others that has been really meaningful to you, you could poke that in the chat. Or if you have a comment or question about any of the books we've talked about thus far. We're going to move into apps next, because both Diogo and I use a lot of apps.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got to say, Jeremy, that I read Atomic Habits because of you, and I already started putting it to practice. It has been helping me. It's very good.
That's great. Yeah, one of the things that I like in those books, both Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits, talk about these sort of habit chains. That's just one other point I'll make about that, which is sort of basically combining a couple things. So for example, like if you don't really want to go for a run, or you have trouble motivating yourself, you can sort of decide that you'll let yourself enjoy a guilty pleasure podcast or music or whatever when you're doing that difficult thing. So you kind of make it less difficult by kind of giving yourself a pleasure with it. And another type of habit chaining is basically doing one thing along with the other. So like every time you go and wash your hands, we all wash our hands a lot these days, right? So every time you go wash your hands, you commit to yourself, I'll take one deep breath whenever I'm washing my hands. It's a very simple thing if you think about it. But there's a book about this, I think it's called Breath, recent book about it, where he talks about the importance of deep breathing and like breathing through our nose, and how much that actually affects our health, and how how shallow our breathing often is. And so just the idea of like every time you're washing your hands, just take one deep breath, like in breath, hold, and then out breath. That's a simple like chain of habits that you do together, and you get used to doing them together. And then over the course of the day, you've had a few moments of mindfulness without having to think about any complicated regimen or downloading apps or any complicated stuff. It's just a very simple way to incorporate that kind of thing. So should we dive into the apps?
Yeah. Cindy talked about, that was in the program with me at CUNY last year, talked about the checklist manifesto, thanks to you, meeting you, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's a great book too. Super, super smart book. Atul Gawande, for those who aren't familiar, it's a wonderful book. It's about checklists in the medical profession. And he references, pilots using checklists and people who build complicated buildings. I always am amazed at these buildings in Manhattan that they go up, and you wonder how hundreds of people are coordinating, right? And a lot of it's checklists. But checklists are also useful in a lot of different realms, including in our own kind of daily lives, and having just a few things we want to try to do on a regular basis can be helpful. So these are a few of my kind of apps that I've used during this period. I wrote about this in my newsletter, and I'll share that link if I can grab it again, in case anyone's interested in the full post, where I have a little bit more detail about it. I just put it in the chat. I call it my digital sanity toolkit or mental wellness toolkit. It's not rocket science. I don't claim these are any, kind of amazing, surprising things, but these are things that have been specifically useful for me. And just to go through them briefly, I use them each differently. Headspace I use before bed, typically, just to get out of my head from any thoughts or anxiety about something I have coming up, or the complexity of the day, or questioning something I've said or done. It puts me in a sleep-ready mindset. And they have a few nice meditations that just put you to bed, go to good night, sleep kind of meditations. And you can set the time, and you can set the gender of the person you want to listen to. So if you want 1 minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you can choose, and you can choose the male voice or female voice. With Calm, I use them for sleep stories. So either sleep stories, which are just kind of like diversions before bed, or there also are some other go to sleep kind of meditations that I like. And those are the primary ways I use those. Occasionally, I'll use them for a 1 minute meditation during the day. Calm has a nice timer where you just turn it on for a minute and it kind of like guides you through breathing in and breathing out. You can set the pace that suits you because our breath speed is different. And Headspace also has some ones you can do with fitness. So you can go for a walk or you can do exercise in a mindful way, which is sort of interesting. That's something I've been learning about through Headspace. 7 is just a useful app for fitness. I don't have time these days for huge, long regimens or interest, frankly, but I can do a 7-minute workout. So that's been really useful. Wobot is one that I found to be really interesting. This may be weird for some people, but I found it really interesting. It's a chat bot basically that kind of just asks you questions and you check in with it. It's free, and it just kind of reminds you to think about certain things, gratitude. It also kind of just helps you track how you're feeling at certain times of day on a regular basis. And it gives you some interesting links. It's kind of a dialogue that it provides that's very simple. It's not doing any complicated, algorithmic analysis of your brain or anything like that. It's fairly simple, but I find it nice and light and useful. This is another one that kind of allows you to combine different kinds of habits. It's called Fabulous, and it allows you to sort of decide, okay, I want to drink a little bit more water, or I want to take more deep breaths, or I want to do a little more exercise, or whatever. You want to send a gratitude note once in a while, and you kind of choose some things, and then it kind of prompts you to follow through on that. And you can choose the notifications. If you don't want to be bothered, you don't have to. But it's quite flexible, and I find it to be a quite nice little tool for that stuff. This is the newest one for me. I don't even think I put this in my original post because I hadn't discovered it. This is the sort of neuroscience-based one, and it's not just meditation. It's also kind of like how we think about our minds. We spend a lot of time training our bodies, is the hypothesis they have, but we don't actually think a lot about training our minds to think in a positive way and to sort of manage our mental thoughts and cycles, and we let our brains run out of control and in a way that we wouldn't let our body probably run out of control that way. So I find it really useful. There's a whole training regimen. You can do a minute every few days or a few minutes. There's some very thoughtful, it's mostly audio, but I really like it. It's completely free. And it has a little check-in thing you do at the beginning, like a little kind of survey or poll kind of thing that I found useful. And then you can see sort of your progress over time. Should we jump into yours, Diogo?
Yeah, but
this last one. I like streaks just to keep track of things. Just nudges me to do things. Okay, and yeah, why don't we turn to yours?
Cool. No, I just want to say that Mar said that Audible also has great sleeping meditations. If people are subscribed, I didn't know that. And Kamala's asking a question. I think it's for you, Jeremy. Kamala, who also was in the program with me. She's a former student of yours. She's asking if we both have any thoughts on habit building fatigue. Like she says that there seems to be an almost endless list of mindful things to do. What do you think?
My thought is just pick 3 things. I agree with that. We can't do 27 things or 50 things at once. Just pick a couple things. For me, doing a little bit of exercise is super important every day. Doing a few minutes of deep breathing is super important, and gratitude. Like just remembering, I'm so grateful to have my daughters, my wife here, good health, good weather, safety, get to work with great people like you, Diogo, and other people who are here today. So I'm super grateful for that. And I have to just focus on those 3 things, getting a little exercise, having a little bit of mindfulness time, and having time to be be grateful and reflect on things. Because, I have 38 Zoom meetings this week, right? I think I mentioned to you. So if I'm not careful, I can just rush through and I don't have time to reflect or address those 3 things. So there's a lot of other things I'd love to do more of. Laughter is one of them. There's a lot of other ones, but I'm just going to stick to 3. So Kamala, that would be my answer is just to find a few things. And with each of those things, just try one thing, right? So one app, one tool. It doesn't have to be an app. It could be a book to read about it. Just try to take one positive step forward on each of those things in a small way each week, and just think about it week by week. Don't think about it in terms of a long-term resolution. Just think, this week I want to try this one little thing, and eventually those things will build on top of each other and add up to a lot. Do you want to add to that, Diogo?
No, I think you're right. And I think that for me, I have a really, really hard time building habits, positive habits, because the bad ones are way too easy. And that's one of the things, like, I mean, it's just to start small and with few habits, not try to, like, fit in all kinds of things, meditating, doing exercise, journaling, whatever. Just, the secret is to try to incorporate this slowly, because it's, I mean, for people like me, it's very hard. So, yeah, I mean, I guess some people can do that easily, but not all of us. And Jocelyn is telling us that the Healthy Minds app was created by Richard Davidson.
Yeah. Dr. Davidson is amazing. I actually, the way I got into that was through a former professor of mine at the Columbia Business School had a webinar. He leads this thing on kind of personal leadership. And he had Dr. Davidson as a guest on this live thing on YouTube. And I was just fascinated by what he was talking about. And the Healthy Minds app is a small initiative of this Healthy Minds Institute. And Dr. Davidson is a leading neuroscientist who thinks a lot about the research in this area. And so the app is research-based, and I find it really useful, and it's completely free, which is nice. And Judd Brewer, who Mar mentions, was someone I went to school with and played in an orchestra with in college, funnily enough. And he's now become drjudd.com, which is funny. So that's a great recommendation. Thank you, Mar, for that. Yeah. And so there's some really great people out there, and nice. Yeah. And one nice thing about Calm and Headspace is they sometimes have those meditations within them from some of these people.
Yeah, Ranjan is saying that he would be happy to chat about the science behind batching. Maybe we could schedule another session to do that with him, right?
Yeah,
because that's going to take that should just be one thing on itself. Thank you, Ranjan. Let me talk about my app so we won't, over time too much. So I also like to meditate like Jeremy. I like mindfulness, and my go-to app is 10% Happier. And I've tried Headspace, I've tried Calm, I've tried, every single meditation app you can think of. I've even done John Caplan's program, the 8 weeks program with his app and the book and everything. But I like this app, 10% Happier, because I think it has great teachers. I think it for people who are interested in a more holistic relationship that meditation can have with our life. I think it's a great choice. They have courses. The teachers are very seasoned people who are, some of them. Judson Brewer has some meditations there, and a lot of famous people, Sharon Salzberg, Jack Kornfield, people like that. And I think it's just a great choice. Really good meditations. It just does everything else the other apps do. I mean, it has sleep audios, courses, short meditations, long meditations. But I think it's a great choice for people who are looking for teachers more than anything else. So that's my recommendation. And the next one is Daywise. Yeah, we have Ranjan here with the founder of Daywise. And I learned about this app through the self-investigation program that I did with Mar Cabra, who is here with us. Thanks, Mar. And they have lots of resources. I'm going to talk about the program in a few minutes, but this app is something that I really needed, because what it does, it gives you the option to batch notifications. So, like you set the times of day and how many times you wish to receive notifications and when you're going to receive those notifications, and everything just comes up in an inbox, and you can catch up with what's been going on, but not be interrupted by your cell phone the whole time. That's something that was really afflicted to me. I mean, I had a hard time disconnecting from my phone, even during the day, because, I was trying to work and the cell phone was there all the time, buzzing and everything. And Daywise just lets you choose which apps are going to be batched. And in the case of messaging apps like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, you can even choose the contacts that you're going to batch or not batch. So, if my partner sends me a message, I get it right away. And it's a very good thing. It's not the only feature that Daywise has, but I think it's a very useful one. Really like it. I think it's very, it really changed my life. I'm not just saying, Another one that I learned through the program was Siempo. And Siempo is, what it does is simplifies your home screen. Like you can see there that you only have the icons there, like it says transport, maps. You assign which app you want to open with these buttons, and that's all you get. Like really sober buttons, no bright colors. Um, Even the other apps, the the ones that are not assigned to this first home screen, it doesn't show the logo. It's only like the first letter of the name of the app. It's much less appealing, and it helps you break that visual addiction that you have to notifications, that you have to just a visual thing that the cell phone has, which is very attractive. I mean, the bright colors, Instagram. I mean, you want to click it. So this is very useful as well, because you can just control your home screen. Like my home screen right now, you can also choose like an image to put in the first screen. Like you have to slide to get to that one that slide is showing, but you can put an image, like I have an image of my dog on my home screen, and nothing else, not an app, not a widget, nothing. So I think it's very good, very useful tool. And yeah, which one? Are we going to talk about the other things now, Jeremy? Do you want to?
Do you want to talk about playlist? Can you see that? Is that showing up on
Yeah,
your?
yeah.
Because somebody asked about waking up. Benedict had asked about waking up stuff, because it's demoralizing. I totally agree to wake up to radio news. In fact, I just want to say a quick interlude. Like, I mean, I'm in journalism, but I try to consume as little news as possible at this point, because it's toxic. It's really toxic. It's important to be up on what's going on in the world, but I think it's important to be up on what's going on in the world in a way that's not toxic. And a lot of news, particularly television news, in my view, has become toxic. And so I think we have to be really careful about how much toxicity we put into our bodies and our brains. And I think having less news is probably a good thing for many of us. Anyway, that's my little two-second thing on that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a thing Benedict is talking about. I'm going to talk about a radio show that I used to wake up or something like that. So one of the things that I found it was helpful for me during all these months is just to create a playlist. I mean, I know that Spotify has lots of playlists, and some of them are great, some are not, but I just wanted to have a playlist with not songs that are not too edgy, songs that are not too depressive, just something to play in the background, but it's also good music. It's not something generic, whatever, elevator music. So with the help of my brother and my partner, we put together this playlist that I'm calling Calm and Good, because it's something that I just play here in my office, put on my headphones, and I can just work focused. I don't need to I don't need to pay attention to the songs, because I know most of them, and they don't catch your attention too much. They're not too noisy or anything, but still good music, because that matters to me. I get irritated when it's some just cheesy soundtracks stuff. So I think that it has been very helpful, and I'm gonna we're gonna share the link to it if you want to join, if you want to listen to it, and check out what I think good music is. And but it's just something that I think it gave me something to do. Like I had to search for songs that would put me in a certain mood, and I shared with people, and it was very good. It was very useful, very helpful for me. Another thing was this app, which doesn't have anything to do with well-being directly, but it's something that I found, a distraction that is helping me cope with, all the anxiety and all the feelings that we've been having, which is this Doggo app. I don't know if anyone here has a dog, or has ever had a dog, but this app is for obedience training with a clicker, which I think is very useful. I have a dog. We adopted a dog 9 months ago, and we've been trying to train her, and she's been a part of my life that I could not imagine not having right now, because she gets me out of the house, and I have to teach her things, how to sit, how to stay, because dogs can get into trouble and they need to obey orders sometimes. And I think this app is very useful, and it gives you a distraction if you have a dog, if you like training. And it's very simple, very good. You have everything that you need in the app. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to even subscribe to anything. It has great lessons. You progress little bit by every time you use it. So I think it's just a great distraction. And the advice that I would give from this app is try to find something outside everything else,
Mm.
something that actively is trying to give you well-being, and just get out of your head for a little bit. That's the main lesson from this app. And Benedict was talking about, listening to things in the morning, and that's one thing that that has been essential to my daily life here in Brazil, which is this. Unfortunately, the show that I'm going to talk about is in Portuguese, so only if you speak Portuguese or Spanish you're going to understand it. And it's just a simple show. There are three people, funny people, they talk about the news a little bit, not too much, but they give me a sense that I'm not alone. I feel like, I'm in the studio with them and I'm talking with them, and they're very spontaneous. That's something that I would, an advice I would give to people who are, trying to think of things that are not the usual things to increase their well-being. Like a radio show like Wait, Don't Tell Me. That's another show that I love, that, keeps me company. And I feel like I've been in a room with those people. So just that's one of the tools that I've found during this time. And
I'm just putting in the chat my own personal podcast favorites, in case anyone's interested in these and other ones. I found, podcasts I love because I can just use them on my own schedule, listen to them whenever I have a moment, and I don't have to listen to all of them. I can't listen to most of them these days, but I can listen to some of them sometimes. So if you're interested, there's my list in the chat. And we've got about 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left, to stick to our schedule. So we'll maybe breeze through a couple last things, and then just open it up for the last few minutes for others to share input. Do you want to talk about this? We both like this framework. Do you want to summarize it, Diogo?
Yeah, that's a technique that I learned from Judson Brewer's book initially, but lots of meditation teachers and other specialists talk about it, which is a very good technique for grounding yourself when you're anxious or when you're feeling bad, altogether. It's a very simple technique, which is RAIN stands for recognize the feeling that what you're going through in that moment. I'm anxious. That's okay. Accept that you have that. I mean, that's okay part. Accept that you're anxious. That's normal. It's not a problem or whatever you're feeling. Investigate means trying to feel in which parts of your body that emotion is touching or is dealing with. I mean, when you're anxious, your heart pounds, you get sweaty sometimes, you get a feeling that you can't breathe. So observe that, neutrally, not trying to judge yourself, but just observing what it does to you. And the end is for, as I understand, it's for non-identification. Like you can tell yourself, this is not me, this is something I'm feeling. I'm not anxiety, I am feeling anxiety. And I have to tell you, this little exercise, it seems, dull, but it has helped me get out of lots of anxiety crises. I tend to have them every once in a while. And just by doing that, one time I was in the middle of the street, I was walking with my dog. I did it, and it really took me out of there. Like, it was very fast. It was very good. I don't know. It doesn't work. I mean, I don't know if it works every single time, but it's a good grounding exercise. At least you're going to do that and stop to observe a little bit of what's going on in your body and on your mind.
Yeah, I totally second that. And there was a nice NPR Life Kit podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way, with useful tips about lots of different things. Yeah. And they had one episode about mindfulness recently, and they had, I think her name is Tara Brach. I forgot her name exactly, but she's a mindfulness person.
Her.
And she talked about this methodology as well. If you want a quick primer on it, you can just search NPR Life Kit RAIN. And that should lead to it. A couple of good recommendations in the chat as well. Yeah, I'm with you on Tanya, on the noise canceling headset. I spent a bunch of money on these Sony wireless whatever things. Do you have them too, Diogo? And they're totally worth it. It's hugely valuable. And yeah, definitely worth the investment. And this is someone you like, Diogo, right?
Yeah, that's for people who are, who are kind of into meditation, but are kind of, don't really like the whole, the people, the teachers who are more mystical or anything or something like that. Jeff Warren is a very experienced meditation teacher, but he's also a funny guy. Like his meditations are funny. He's a funny guy. He'll talk about, like, for example, his meditation about self-compassion is called "Don't Be an Asshole to Yourself." That's the kind of thing he does. He doesn't take things too seriously, and he's very good teacher, but a very funny guy. He's called the MacGyver of meditation. He can do a meditation with anything in any situation. And on his website, you're going to find lots of resources for free. And he's also on Calm and on 10% Happier. And of course, the self-investigation program. Mar, thank you again. This is a program that Mar and Kim Bryce and other people at the EJC held a couple of months ago. I think the Spanish version of it, it's about to wrap up. But I would encourage everybody to just go to the website. It's a program that aimed to journalists who are, going through stress right now. We're always going through stress, but this is a particularly challenging time. And they have really great resources, free meditations, free audios. They have a list of other resources that you can find, apps and talks and webinars. It's a great resource for anybody who's interested in that. And I did the program with them, part of it in July, and it was very good. I really recommend it. And you can subscribe to their newsletter to know if there's anything new, when they're going to give it, when they're going to do it again.
There are a couple of things that I didn't mention. One is Day One. I really love that app for journaling. It's a really nice journaling app. Maybe you can journal in a piece of paper. You don't need an app, but if anyone's looking for one, I find that really nice. And I actually just, I ordered the book. You can get a book printed so you can actually look back on your reflections and have a memory of what you've been through and what you've done and pictures that you've put in there. And now you can record a little audio. If you don't feel like writing something, you can just record a little audio. I like having at least one thought from a day and a picture, see my girls as they grow up and things like that. It's a really nice way to do that. As I said, you can do that with any app, so it doesn't have to be Day One. A lot of them work in a similar way, but I find it useful to have a place to put that stuff, which is separate from all the work stuff and separate from a lot of other things online. I like this app. This is just a fun little one, Pop Pic. If you want 3D photos, I find this really cool. This is fun when you're in nature these days. I wrote about Seek also. That's another one, in nature one, where you can point it at an animal or a plant or a bug, and it will identify it automatically, like right away, and give you background information. It's fun learning about trees and flowers and plants for me because I know nothing about any of that. So, so those are two little additional ones, Pop Pic and Seek. And this is just our contact info. If yeah, the 5-minute journal is a great one, by the way, which Mar mentions. There's a few different sort of minimal journals which you can get. You can order them, and you can just write like a few things each day. Usually they ask like, what are you grateful for? What are you excited to do today? And what's one thing you want to share with other people or something. They'll give you a few different prompts. With Day One, you can create your own templates too and create kind of prompts for yourself, which is, I find, helpful. So you don't have to worry about what to write about. You just kind of respond to the prompt. So this is how you can find Diogo on Twitter or on email. And this is my info.
Feel free to message me.
Yeah, feel free to email me or follow me on Twitter. My newsletter, I'm trying to make a useful place for sharing stuff that I'm using, which is the Wonder Tools thing. Yeah, if people have other comments in the final moments, you can put them on this Slido, and it can be suggestions for if we should do something like this again. It could be something that you think has been really useful to you that we should look into. Really anything that you find you'd like to add. And in the chat, you can add any final resources that you've been using or that you found useful as we get ready to wrap up. And I think I'll share the link. Diogo, is that's seems like this is a good time to any, right? To share that.
Yeah.
We may as well.
Yeah, I think it's
if I can sort of walk and chew gum at the same time, I'll try to grab the link and share that in the Zoom chat for anyone if you want to see.
Can do it.
Yeah, let me stop sharing screen for a second. And
I'll do it. Let me do it.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
I did it. This is our presentation with the links and everything, so you can if you didn't have time to write everything down, you can just look for the things that we talked about today.
And it's comment capable. So if you want to add something, you can just select something on a slide and just add a comment. Say, oh, this app I really like, or I read this book too, and this was really useful, or whatever. You can feel free to add anything to it. Thanks everyone for stopping by. I hope you found something useful out of this. And for me, it's been always a pleasure being with you, Diogo. And even if we're half the world away, but still we can kind of share thoughts at least. And thanks everyone who's joining. I feel like on the one hand, I have too many Zooms for me personally, but on the other hand, I don't know what I would do without them, because I would just be isolated even more. So I appreciate the chance to be with people.
Yeah. And Jeremy has been doing some other, Zoom live workshops, just chatters and things like that. And so it's been great, like this connection that, the Zoom can provide, not only just boring meetings. It's very good. And it's been a pleasure it was great doing this with you. It's like, I've been following your own workshops, and now I'm doing one with you. So that's very good. And I'm happy that everyone was here. Thanks for joining us. We can hang out for a few minutes here. Do you want to hang out for a
I
few
think what I'd like to do is give people
minutes?
permission to step outside and go to whatever you have to do next, and enjoy the real world that's around you. And if some people want to stick around for a few minutes, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes, but feel free to exit whenever you'd like. And just consider this little behind the scenes, time. I do want to address one thing Lou Ortiz mentioned, concern about surveillance and data mining in these apps. One thing I would point you to, everyone too, if they're interested, I put this in my newsletter this week, actually, yesterday, is Blacklight, which is this project from the Markup. So it's actually a tool that you can paste in any link. And the Markup is a nonprofit site that covers technology in an age of surveillance. And if I can find the link quickly, I will paste it in here. And the Blacklight thing is basically a tool that you can paste any link into, and you can basically see what tracking they're doing. So if you're interested in that, it won't necessarily work for, just seeing if I have the here. Yeah, here's the link. Okay, I just put the link in the chat. It won't work necessarily for apps, I don't think, because it's web-based. But maybe there is a similar tool that people can point to that does a similar thing for apps. And I see Mar has a hand raised. Maybe you wanted to add something, Mar? Feel free to unmute if you wanted to add something.
Yes, I just wanted to just mention that Alice is mentioning in the chat the power of humans too, and how, so for example, in the self-investigation program, the edition we're doing with the European Journalism Center, we've paired people with each other to have a buddy system,
nice.
So that they catch up with each other for 15 minutes once a week. And I think that, a great tool you can use is the humans around you, and maybe set up a buddy system and try to just like check in with each other like for 15 minutes, once a week. And that really is also very helpful in terms of like activating your, calming your nervous system, and activating all sorts of good things in your brain.
Thank you. That's a great comment. I really appreciate that. I agree. I would honestly rather have a real chat than chat with a robot. It's sometimes hard to organize that or have it at the time that you want it to, especially when you've got so many dozens of other Zoom meetings. But I think that's a great point. One other thing just along those lines that I found useful recently is little micro volunteering things. And I wrote about this again in my newsletter, but Be My Eyes is one I really like, where you basically volunteer to see things for people who are sight impaired or blind. And it's super easy. You can't control the schedule because it's when people have something they need. But it just, your phone kind of gets a query. In my case, which I wrote about in my newsletter, the guy who was reaching out was trying to cook something and couldn't tell if it was done. And so you just like basically use your eyes and say, here's what I see. It looks like it's ready or whatever. Or it could be they need a piece of help with the clothing or whatever it is. But anyway, doing those kinds of things get me out of my head and help put things in perspective and just let you feel like you're doing something good for a minute. It's not a big commitment or anything like that. But there's a few different ways you can do that kind of micro volunteering, and that's sort of a fun way to connect with other people and to, again, get outside of your own concerns or thoughts.
Yeah.
Just seeing
Yeah,
if there are any
that's-
other questions, or if anyone else wants to chime in with to say anything, feel free to unmute. Diogo, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say that maybe we should, just expand that the self-investigation program and this webinar to something that we can create a group of people to, just do that in a more, and not at such a long-term basis, because that's one thing I think that we're lacking right now between journalists, is just this kind of solidarity and just being able to exchange with people. And maybe it's something to think about. I don't know, just an idea that popped in my head, but I think it would be very good. Just have a support group, like a journalism self-care support group, because it would be something interesting. Like I said, when I did the program with Mar, one of the things that I really liked about the program was the space to exchange. It wasn't just about them giving webinars. It was about, just talking to them, talking to other people. They broke us up into smaller groups, and the meetups that I went to. So I think it's a great thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for us to think about. ONA is coming up. It'll be interesting to see if there's some other Online News Association International Conference online. I wonder if there'll be elements of that sense of community building, or if that could be a sidebar where people can connect with one another a little bit on this stuff. Well, let's close on that and let people get back to whatever they want to get back to. And you have the link to the slides. Hopefully there's something useful in there for you. And if you have things that we should know about, please reach out to us. I think you have our contact info. And yeah, thanks, Diogo. Thanks everyone for being here. Yeah,
thank you, Jeremy. Thanks everyone, and I hope we can see each other soon.
Yeah, have a peaceful and nice weekend ahead. And Happy New Year. Shana Tova to anyone who's celebrating that, and Gmar Chatima Tova for those who are celebrating this week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.